Wheat belly critique. Catherine Jones, wheat belly critique. She's a professor at, I forget where, but she just, dude, she bukakis that wheat. I mean, she really does.
I was wondering, I read a research study that said eating carbohydrates late at night can increase your melatonin levels. So I was wondering what you knew about nutrient timing to do with helping sleep.
It can increase your serotonin levels. Melatonin, I frankly don't know. I know from an anecdotal standpoint, and I'll admit that this is anecdote and observation, that people tend to sleep better with a larger meal at the later part of the night versus just fighting your way through a tiny meal and going to bed hungry. But yeah, I think the science would lean towards carbohydrate in the evening time and the raising of serotonin levels and the calming effect of that for sleep. That's what my speculation would be. Yeah, there's a physician, I can't remember his name, which is a shame, but he prescribes carbohydrate on the basis of a couple of different tests. If your fasting glucose and insulin is above a certain threshold, he'll automatically put you on a lower carbohydrate intake. That's one kind of benchmark way to do it on essentially testing crude measures of blood glucose control on deciding how you're going to fare with carbohydrate. I think that can be a little treacherous when you are introducing a protocol that has exercise too. So you almost want to be as conservative as possible with making assumptions about what somebody can or can't handle in terms of carbohydrate, especially if you got calories right. So once you got calories right, then there's a lot of flexibility and leeway in the carbohydrate and fat level of the diet, especially with respect to the type of training that the person does. So if the person does like low and slow and no intensity, then they have a lot of flexibility to go pretty low on carbohydrate. Now, if you're putting someone through like CrossFit 9000, P90X, advanced, then you're not really going to want to go up. Fasting insulin is X, so I need to put this guy on low carbohydrate. Boom, go do your freaking kipping pull-ups. That's not going to work. So you have to take all the program variables into account. So I think there's some treachery in looking at blood biomarkers or these parameters that might suggest low versus non-low carb. So that's a good question. That's a huge question. Who's been waiting? Well, we'll go right here.
In terms of purely body composition, is a carb considering we only have monosaccharide transporters?
Concerning body composition.
Only body composition.
Okay. I would say for an physically active, rigorously athletic person, yeah, carb is a carb. But for somebody who's relatively sedentary, and especially for someone who's sedentary and in a caloric surplus, if they consume enough fructose, they can generate more lipids through the DNL pathway. If they've got enough free fructose in their diet, or even bound fructose within sucrose and added sugars. So I would say a carb is not a carb for the sedentary guy in the surplus. But it generally is for the athlete. As far as body composition is concerned. As far as long-term health is concerned, well, you can displace disease preventive nutrients and compounds with an excess of added sugars and stuff. If you overdo it enough over time. So from a long-term health standpoint, a carb is never a carb from one carb from another. So.
I'm curious to hear what your response is to questions about recent strains of wheat. So I believe this is popularized by Wheat Belly, where you talk about the genetically modified strains of wheat and us being intolerant to newer strains that we're eating.
Well, I I can beat that dude in the pose down any day. So his opinion is invalid. Next, no, I'm kidding. Now, this is my hypothesis on stuff. It's like diets. Doctors, a lot of them are, I mean, they're at the top of the food chain in terms of native intelligence. But most doctors think they're smarter than they are. And then they write books. And I'm sorry, but that's true. They get an idea and they make these Superman-sized leaps of faith and logic. Same thing with the wheat, the dwarf wheat, the different production methods. Oh, wheat is no longer wonderful like it used to be. It's not this evil little wheat willy thing. You know, that's speculation. There is a really good critical essay that you can Google. You can Google Catherine Jones Wheat Belly Critique. Catherine Jones Wheat Belly Critique. She's a professor at I forget where, but she bukakis that wheat. I mean, she really does it in. But she has a long reference list that is very. I mean, she supports it really well. She supports her counter arguments really well. So look that up. Catherine Jones Wheat Belly Critique. Google it. It'll be the first link.